So our first speaker is Yves De Koninck, who's from Université Laval. He's the Director of Research for the Quebec Integrated University Health and Social Services Center. He's the Scientific Director of the Cerveau Brain Research Center. He's a Professor of Psychiatry and Neuroscience at Université Laval. He's the former President of the Canadian Association for Neuroscience. He's founded the Quebec Pain Research Network and the Canadian Neurophotonics Platform, which is a multi-center initiative to foster the development of new technologies to probe the brain. While he's dedicated his career in understanding the mechanisms underlying chronic pain, he's been a strong proponent of transdisciplinarity, leading efforts to bridge across disciplines, creating collaborative research environments, and training young scientists at the interface of research fields. He now leads Sentinel North, which is a global initiative hosted at Laval here in Quebec City to harness the power of light for the benefit of health, environment, and sustainable development in the North. He also leads the Canadian Brain Research Strategy, which is a grassroots initiative to promote and strengthen neuroscience through collaborative trans-Canadian efforts towards a big science approach for brain research. So thank you, Yves, for accepting our invitation, and all yours.
All right, thank you, Marie-Ève. I'm going to share my presentation. I guess so this afternoon, there are three of us are giving presentations, and I'm starting and trying to take a bit the talk through the lens of institution, but institution in a general sense. I'm an active researcher, and I've been involved in trying to build a number of large-scale initiatives, both at the institutional level and at the provincial and national and international level. And I guess I want to share a certain number of reflections or fuel the discussion with some reflection points and showing that through these different initiatives and these different levels of activity, platform support, and especially the functional aspect of platform support is really key at all of these levels. So, as Marie-Ève said, my job is, I'm director of a research center. So my job is really to try to provide a very strong infrastructure for the researchers to multiply their activities. And this spans large scales from individual instruments like a flow cytometer that's used by many investigators, all the way to a large imaging facility or even international or national platforms. And we'll go through that, but definitely this is at the core of our business. And in the Quebec system, we have the chance of having hospital-based research centers like ours that are funded by the Fonds Recherche Québec, in this case, the health wing of the Fonds Recherche Québec, which its funding is all dedicated to support infrastructure in the sense of the functional aspect of it. So that's very, very much at the core of our realities. I also created the Quebec Pain Research Network almost 20 years ago, and the legacy of many networks again, this one funded by the FRQ, the Fonds Recherche Québec, is often the creation of mutual resources and platforms. It's, in a sense, it's, again, when we do collaborative research and network, we're trying to network, it all boils down to creating common facilities, common resources, common tools that we can all use. And again, the perennity of these creations is always important. I'm also leading one of the CFEF programs, the Canada First Research Excellence Fund, Sentinel North, which is really very ambitious. Ours is really centered around an extremely transdisciplinary effort to really propel our understanding of the impact of climate change in the North on environment and health. So it's meant to bring extreme diversity of scientists from anthropologists all the way to physicists around that common problem, convergence effort. I'll talk about a platform in this context, which is also a bit of a different concept of platform than just a facility that just provides a resource. It opens to the fact that platforms are also a hotbed for technology development, and we'll get to that. And as Maria said, I'm also involved very much in this Canadian Brain Research Strategy, which is a think tank to really forge a common vision in the country for bringing brain research to a big science effort. Again, certain fields of environmental research and nuclear physics, for example, are the ethos of working in a large collaborative efforts is natural. In the biomedical sector, it's a little less developed. We certainly have the genomics effort that have been a particularly eloquent example of the power of platform work. But we really need to adopt a much more open, collaborative science effort. And again, we really think that the platform type science is at the core of these types of efforts. I also lead a core facility in my center that's called the Neurophotonics Center that has been funded by CFI, a very important and critical investment by CFI over the years. And which has been, as Derek mentioned earlier today, a real key hotbed for so many initiatives at our university. First one is our training. We've talked about training. There's a lot of programs. CIHR has one, NSERC has had one, and NSERC has training programs. And we talked about MITAX earlier. But these, the real pillar of supporting these training programs has been this platform. It's also allowed us to play a critical presence in training initiatives with European initiative, the European Commission, and more recently, the Marie Curie actions of the European community. Three examples of three training programs that are very, very international, involving in each case half a dozen to a dozen universities. And our very participation in this international programs is actually justified by our key platform, the Neurophotonics Center. And it's also been a trampoline to our participation in other international efforts. There was a question earlier today about international efforts. There are funding agencies that are trying to get together sometimes for international efforts. Here's an example of the NeuroNext program that involved NSF, CHR, FRQ, the Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft, and the UK MRC. The beautiful example of a number of funding agencies teaming up. And it was inspired by thinking at the International Brain Initiative. But again, our participation in these efforts is key through the platform. It's been also the ethos behind the Neurophotonics Center has been our competitive edge at getting a Canada Excellence Research Chair in neurophotonics, and which is also key to our success at getting Sentinel. So it just shows that the cascade of success that in the end are based on the pillar of a platform like this. And then maybe talk about the concept of bringing this more national, and we can think of very large platforms like the Amundsen or the Canadian Light Source that are key resources for the country, and everyone has to turn to these facilities to be able to conduct their research. But there's also the idea of having networking of platforms across the country for activities that are more distributed and have to be distributed because of the proximity of research. And we can say a word about this effort. So a few discussion points. I want to bring up for thinking, for discussion later. I really think that, in the context of speaking a lot more about open science or big science concept, I really think platforms are a very important model for the open science. Again, for certain fields, it may be obvious. For some of the biomedical fields, that are much more structured around individual researchers, it's really a key asset. And in this context, I think we need to really rethink some of the funding schemes. If we want to go much more towards an open science, a sharing model, we need some kind of funding. That's what I call structural funding, for lack of a better word. Some base funding that is not built, and it's not to criticize. We have a great competitive individual discovery funding scheme in our country, and it works well. It fosters excellence, but you can't. It is inherently contradictory to a sharing model when you have to compete with each other for showing that you're the best. So I think we have to think of different levels of funding to support these two types of activities that are key. And I think the work that the CNSP has led with Claire, showing the impact of platforms and propelling discovery research is very eloquent in this respect. So the two are very complementary. And we have to see it, ironically, I've lived through it, with the occurrence of CFI, which has been transformative for our country. We've witnessed at the same time a real disengagement from funding agencies for platform support. And I've seen this with CIHR and NSERC. Everyone sort of has turned to CFI as sort of the magic agency that should support all of that. And people then demonize CFI for not supporting everything. And I think this is wrong thinking. Every funding agencies and every layers of our ecosystem, I think, has to really incorporate that in their ethos. The FRQ, for example, and especially the health one, supports networks and centers, and they certainly support platforms. It's been key for the support of ours. But interestingly enough, FRQ has never been able to really, in the end, come and create a dedicated program for platform support. There's a bit of effort at the ministry that's funding FRQ, the Ministry of Economy and Innovation in Quebec, to go in that direction, but it's still very, very timid as an effort. Of course, and then this is tomorrow's discussion, so we don't necessarily need to go too much into this, but through all of this, of course, comes the challenge of metrics. I think this is very key, because we need to go for more holistic measurement schemes of interdisciplinarity. We really need, and funding agencies are all turning to this, saying we want to support collaborative research. We want to support team science. The last CIHR strategic plan states those two things very big. But then through the years, team research and collaborative research has often been battered and downplayed or spoken against by scientists, because we evaluate teams as the sum of individual researchers, where every of the researchers have to be excellent by the same metrics. And that's actually contradictory to an interdisciplinary research and team science, where a team should be evaluated as in a holistic fashion. And this applies very much to platforms. If you're asking the leader of a scientific platform that to be judged by the same, if you want that person to be part of a key person in the team, essential person in the team, and you want to evaluate that person with the same metrics as everyone else in terms of publication record, for example, you're really in the wrong area. direction. And within Sentinel North, we're working a lot with different partners here, Science Metrics, for example, to really try to develop this. And I think this is going to be really key for the future of supporting platform science, is to develop the proper metrics for evaluating them. And of course, I mentioned here hands raised to the work that was led by Laurence Lejeune and Claire, and that Vincent is going to present tomorrow, Vincent Larivière. So, and again, great study to actually show these impacts. At the institutional level, but instead of talking about financial support at the institutional level, I want to raise the very, very important point of the appreciation and valuation of career path outside of the professorial track. Our universities are structured to really showcase and reward the professional track, and platforms is a key example of such importance of career scientists that are just dedicated to service of a community. I like to point this, the FRQ actually created an Excellence Prize for recognition of research professionals. It's kind of ironic that it's only happening now. It's a great gesture from them, but why is it only happening now? Also, chapeau at the CNSP for their prize for platform scientists. Again, it's still recent, and it shows that we need to turn our attention to that. Some mention here, and I think my colleagues are going to talk about that more, the need for bottom-up versus a top-down approach for platform. We certainly, as institutions, cannot impose platform and people to use platform and only use certain platforms that we're creating. That's actually very important in our thinking about fostering platform. Certainly my experience is that it has to really come from the base, and it has to demonstrate its added value to the community so that the community adheres to using it. We've said it, Derek has said it again this morning, platforms are really key to transdisciplinary training. And I mentioned it, how enabling our neurophotonics platform, our neurophotonics center, that infrastructure and the staff that is with it has been in fostering training, especially transdisciplinary training. This one is really at the interface of neuroscience and physics. It's a hotbed for it's really the base of an international symposium series. It's supporting a summer school that has been going on for almost 15 years now, if we forget last year. This has been extremely international, extremely productive summer school, because it provides the opportunity for hands-on training for trainees that come from all over the world. Training programs, as I mentioned, other training programs, also seminar series, dissemination series. Again, all of these activities for which we end up being able to find funding. Many of us are going to say their kids, if you ask your kids what mom or dad is doing, they would say, well, they write grants. They're not scientists, they just write grants. And so we're great at getting funding for all of these activities. But the irony in the end is that they are supported by the platforms at the core, and we still are lacking platform support. And again, I'd like to emphasize the need for transdisciplinarity. And I think platforms are also particularly a key tool for training at the interface of discipline, especially given that they bring a very specialized expertise around the table. Within the Neurophotonics Center and also within Sentinel North, we've developed concepts of platforms that are also hotbeds for technology development. So not just providing a service, but actually within Sentinel North, this Neurophotonics Center is really an infrastructure that allows physical scientists to develop new techniques, new tools, Within Sentinel North, it was key to supporting the community to create a platform, which we funded very, very strongly. Other CFREFs have done the same. The Healthy Brain for Healthy Life at McGill, for example, has funding programs dedicated to supporting platforms directly. Within Sentinel North, one of the ones that we supported is really one that's actually there to provide expertise to accompany researchers to develop their tools, or bring them to a state where they can actually use them, especially in the field, because a field deployed technology is very important within Sentinel North. And as I said before, with this neurophotonics initiative, we've sort of ported this at the national level, where we've teamed up with a number of institutions to really foster the development of in neuroscience, we need hardware development, we need wetware development, the proteins, the viral vectors, and so on, and software development to really go forward. And one of the ideas was we got money from Brain Canada for what is recognized as a platform that was bringing 8 research centers across the country that are engaged, that have their own core facilities, and they're all engaged in this collaborative effort to accelerate the development of these tools and its adoption by the community. And one thing that I think is key to stress here is that the vision behind the grant is really to support career scientists, the staff, not the trainees. We support the trainees through the activities of the platform, but it's not the trainees that are doing especially the testing and the validation of the tools. Because this is a part of the effort, of the common effort that's very time consuming, but you cannot necessarily dedicate a trainee that is working on having to develop his or her own research program and papers and so on, to spend time just testing and validating tools, especially in the medical research side, where there's a lot of expectation on that. And a recent flavor of this platform is Marie-Ève's, the one that Marie-Ève is leading, a subset of the platform, the optogenetics and vectorology, which is based on 2 core facilities, ours at Cerveau and the one at U Alberta, where developing the tools and the optogenetic tools, and then the viral vectors, but then teaming up with a number of institutions and so each of these platforms produce for the community, but here they're working with the institutions to really foster a design, build, test, development loop that is really critical to accelerate these tools. Many of the tools that we develop, the real test is the real world application. For example, in optogenetics, they work in reduced systems, you bring them in vivo and then they stop working. It's really critical to support, again, staff scientists whose job is really oriented towards supporting that. And just to finish, and just to say that we're not...
Yves, I just want to tell you that
I'm over time. I just want to say that these values are resonating with the young scientists. Within the Canadian Brain Research Strategy, we did workshops last fall with early career researchers, and here's a word cloud analysis of the words that really resonated with them. And you see that collaborative, transdisciplinary, and open science are really at the core of what the young generation believes in. So I think platforms are really representative of that. Voilà.